Hello, everyone. I have returned. The post-Mania hiatus is over, and I am back to making regular videos. The only videos I've made since WrestleMania weekend have been the live streams for Saturday night's main event and Clash of Champions, which thanks to everybody that's been joining me on those streams and been watching those. It's something I've really enjoyed doing, and I love going back and reliving all those old shows. And you guys get to see a different side of me. You get to see me like mark out for old stuff and be nostalgic. So I think it's a lot of fun, and it's something I've really enjoyed doing. So glad you guys seem to be enjoying them. And there will be another one this weekend. This weekend we will be watching Saturday night's main event number 9, which features Hulk Hogan versus Paul Orndorff in a steel cage match for the WWF title. Might be the biggest match in Saturday night's main event history, or the most, probably the most well-remembered, or the most talked about, certainly. And for Clash of Champions, it'll be Clash of Champions number 8, as Sting teams up with Ric Flair in that show's main event. So a lot of fun stuff to look forward to this weekend. Couple of things I want to go over before I jump into the real main bulk of today's video. I did finally see the Andre the Giant documentary. I highly recommend watching it. I think it's very well made. I think even if it doesn't tell you anything you may not have already known about Andre, and most of what was in the documentary I already knew, it still packs quite the emotional punch, and towards the end of it, I started to tear up a little bit. So, and it was really great to see his family life and his upbringing and some of his wrestling training as well. And it's cool to see the younger Andre, because I think a lot of fans my age or younger think of Andre, the end of his career, barely mobile, end of his life, unfortunately. And people forget he was quite the athlete. He was quite athletic. I think I was talking about one of the matches I watched on the WWE Network a couple months ago was a steel cage match he had with Big John Studd, and the finish of that match saw Andre jump off the top rope and come down on top of Studd with a sit-down splash. I would never take that bump in a million years. And by take that bump, I mean I would not be Big John Studd in that situation. It's like, you want me to lay down on the mat and let Andre the Giant jump from the top rope and land on top of me ass first. No, thank you. No, none of that sounds appealing. All of what you just described sounds terrible. But, there were a lot of things. Like, Andre could throw drop kicks, and Andre could actually get on the mat and wrestle. These are things that a lot of fans my age or younger don't know. So, you get to see some of that in the documentary. They gloss over a lot of things, too. It felt like everything kind of built to WrestleMania 3, and then it was kind of like, okay, let's wrap up. But I wish they had gone into a little bit more detail with the Princess Bride and talked to the cast a little bit more, because that's one of the things that kind of made Andre a pop culture icon for a lot of people, because a lot of wrestling fans, or a lot of people who aren't wrestling fans, have seen that movie and grew up with that movie, and they remember Andre from that movie. I have friends who are huge fans of The Princess Bride, have never watched a wrestling show in their life, but they love Andre the Giant because of that movie. And I love him in that movie too. I think he's so lovable in that movie. He's so great. And they want the peanut. So yeah, I mean, if you're just interested in getting the life story of one of wrestling's most interesting figures, I think it's good for that. Like I said, they gloss over some things. And even the stuff that might not be true, like, the stories of him drinking 108 beers, and the stories of him flipping over a car, and the story of whether, Hogan was scared that Andre was going to put him over, which I've always doubted, like, the validity of that, but it kind of adds to the myth of Andre the Giant. It's like, there's like, all right, how much of that is actually true, and how much of it actually happened, And the documentary doesn't really answer those questions. It just talks about how Andre was this mythical figure in real life, and that legacy is carried over even after his death. And I'll tell this one story. I think I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it here. I did get to see Andre the Giant in person once. I was very young. I was 6 years old, and there was a house show in Landover, Maryland, and it was the first wrestling event I ever saw live. I was very, very young. My memories of that show are what's the best way to put it? Slight, to say the least. I don't have a lot of specific memories from going. I just remember being there, and as a child, I was confused that I couldn't hear the announcers talking, because I assumed... See, when I was a kid, I assumed that the announcer, like, the crowd could hear the announcers too. So that was one of those things I didn't realize, that, oh, only the TV audience can hear Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan yell at each other. Okay. I thought everybody could hear them, but it was one of those things that I remember being thoroughly confused by that. But the other big thing I remember is Andre the Giant was in the babyface's corner for one of the matches. I don't remember who the babyface was. I don't remember who the heel was. I just remember seeing Andre the Giant, and I remember we didn't get the greatest seats. We were kind of far back. And I remember thinking, the wrestlers kind of look like ants from here, but Andre looks like a stag beetle. He looked humongous. And, I got to see Andre, so that was pretty cool. And it's one of those weird things. Bruno Sammartino just passed away, and that was unfortunate. But one of my favorite memories from going to WrestleMania 29 was during the Hall of Fame presentation, I got to see Bruno Sammartino in person. That's really cool. And I can say that I got to see Andre the Giant and Bruno Sammartino in person, and that's pretty awesome. And it's very small things. Andre was at the end of his career and not wrestling and just in the corner of the babyface, and Bruno was just standing on the stage waving to people as he had already been inducted into the Hall of Fame, but I got to see them, and at that point, that's enough. And those are memories I'll cherish. And like I said, I recommend the Andre documentary. I think it's great. I just wanted to give a basic review of that. Also coming up for my videos, my next Star Wars review is going to be up either tomorrow or Friday. It's going to be something that ties into the Solo movie, and specifically the character of Han Solo. I think I just gave away what it is, so I might as well just say it now. It's going to be the Han Solo trilogy, the 3 books that came out that were part of the expanded universe and gave us some Han Solo standalone stories. And can't wait to review them. I'm really excited to talk about them, actually. And I'm going to tie that into the Solo movie and how I think the Solo movie's not going to be good. And I'll explain why, and what this movie does that I like, or what the books did that I liked, and what I think, where I think the movie's going to fail. So my next Star Wars review is going to be a review of the Han Solo trilogy and a preview for Solo, and talking about how my expectations are super low for that movie. But whatever. We'll get there. That'll be up either tomorrow or Friday. And from there, we also have the Greatest Royal Rumble coming up. It's debuting, or it's going to be airing at noon on Friday, not midnight, because those of you who watched the stream last week, they showed a commercial for the Greatest Royal Rumble. I was like, oh my god, noon or midnight? That's terrible. I'm not staying up to watch that shit. And it was like, that's 12 p.m. That's noon. I'm like, oh, I'll be at work. I can't see it either. But you look at the card. The card is so massive. You got a 50-man Royal Rumble, a ladder match, a cage match, John Cena versus Triple H, which will probably go half an hour because fuck me, and a slew of championship matches. You've got AJ versus Nakamura in the rematch, and I'm just like, this thing's gonna be like 18 hours long, or it's good. I mean, my God, I'm not gonna get home until about 6 p.m. on Friday. The show might still be going by the time I get home. Good grief. Yeah, so that's going to be something, but I'm going to try and watch it, when I get home, and then I'll have a review sometime during the week. I might even include it as part of my live stream on Saturday morning, my review of the Greatest Royal Rumble. So, you'll have that to look forward to as well. But, with all that said, let's get into the main purpose of this video, which is inspired by WrestleMania. It's like WrestleMania was seemingly eons ago. It was a couple weeks ago. Seems like it seems like it was such a long time ago that we got that show. And here I am, I'm still talking about WrestleMania, but following, WrestleMania 34, which is a show I did not hate. There were things I liked about it, things I enjoyed. While I did not hate the show, it did inspire me to come up with this particular video, and I thought, why the hell not? The top 10 worst WrestleMania main events. So it forced me to kind of sit down and think about, okay, which WrestleMania main events were truly the worst? Which are the ones I look back on and go, oh my god, that one closed out Mania with a total stinker, and like, what a weak way to close a show, man. That's terrible. So, which main events did not do their job? Because you want the last image of WrestleMania to be a big deal. You want the last image of WrestleMania to be like this triumphant, oh my god, we just saw something amazing, or something shocking, Like, even though I wasn't a fan of the Austin heel turn at 17, it was like, oh my god, what just happened? I gotta watch Raw tomorrow night. Vince and Austin joined forces. Then I saw where they went with it, and I hated it. But, and that one singular moment of time, it worked. And, unfortunately, there are a bunch of WrestleManias that close very flat. And I'm gonna go over the top 10 worst for you here right now. And, I'm going to talk about why these main events didn't work for me and why, I felt like they were weak closers for WrestleMania. So with all that said, let's go jump right into it. Number 10 from WrestleMania 18, Chris Jericho defending the Undisputed Championship with Stephanie McMahon in his corner, taking on Triple H, that year's Royal Rumble winner. The unfortunate thing here, and everybody, the story with this match is always, it's a shame that they had to follow Hogan Rock. Hogan Rock should have closed. And I agree. However, the crowd reaction that Hogan Rock got was something that was outside of their control. Nobody could have predicted that. Nobody could have ever dreamed that the crowd was going to react that way. That was a once-in-a-lifetime crowd reaction. You know what you can control? You know what was fully within their control? Having the WWE Champion clean up dog poop and take orders from Stephanie like he's a bitch, and feel like a complete non-factor in the build-up to his own main event, the match where he's going to drop the title to the big hero, which is going to be Triple H's triumphant return. And, oh my god, they treated Jericho like such garbage, and that's the thing I'll never understand, because I know Triple H has creative control over his own stuff, and sometimes, like, he'll just go over a guy and just chew him up and spit him out, and this was one of those cases. Now, not saying that the match was a squash match, I'm just saying you never bought Jericho as a threat to Triple H, the way the story was told and the way everything was built. And the most telling sign of the whole thing, when they come out for their entrances, Jericho points to Stephanie on the entrance ramp, when it should be the other way around. And of course, Jericho in his book detailed how originally the storyline was supposed to go. Jericho and Stephanie were fucking, and Stephanie was cheating on him, cheating on Hunter with Jericho. And Triple H nixed it, because he's like, oh, my character would know if my wife was cheating on me. And I'm like, really, dude? Your character would know. He would just instantly know that his wife was cheating on him. Okay, dude. But, Jericho felt like an interchangeable cog, and he was the champion. That's not good. That is not good at all. First undisputed champion, beat Rock, beat Austin, same night. Had an amazing match with Rock at the Royal Rumble, despite a little silliness with the ending. I mean, that was one of those, like, babyface protection endings where it was like, oh, he took a steel chair and a low blow and outside interference, and I think he held the tights, too. It's like, oh, what, no machine gun? But at least Rock lost. At least he lost. If it were John Cena, there would have been more doubt. But, Jericho had some amazing matches with Rock. He beat Austin in February. It wasn't the greatest match, but he did go over Austin in February, and it's like, okay, Jericho should feel like a number one threat. And the build-up to Mania, they just made Jericho look like a bitch. And, I mean, we all knew Triple H was going to go over, but they didn't even let Jericho build up sufficient heat to really make us want to see Triple H go over him. I remember they did the whole thing with Lucy the dog, which was just... oh my god, that was so bad. so bad. He ran over Triple H's dog, which sounds like a Monty Python sketch almost. It sounds too silly. And the match just didn't work. And in addition to the fact that they had to follow Hogan Rock, the crowd was burnt out. They didn't really care for Jericho all that much. They weren't invested in the story. Stephanie was more important to the story than Jericho was, and it just didn't work. And Triple H went over like we all predicted, and bada bing, bada boom, that was it. That was pretty much all there was to say. It was a very weak sauce main event, and it's unfortunate because that was Jericho's one chance at a WrestleMania main event. And Jericho's one of my favorites. I was kind of hoping for it to be this really amazing match, and it didn't happen. Most unfortunately, but what can you do? Number 9 from WrestleMania 11, my pick for the overall worst WrestleMania of all time. That show is a dumpster fire of the highest degree. And the main event is an indicator of that. Although, sadly, this match is actually one of the better parts of the show. It tells you how bad this Mania is. Lawrence Taylor, NFL football star, Giants legend, arguably the greatest player to ever wear a New York Giants uniform, a man who reinvented how defense is played in the NFL. Lawrence Taylor put on the wrestling tights and faced Bam Bam Bigelow in the huge special attraction match of WrestleMania 11. I give full props to Bam Bam Bigelow for carrying LT as best he could and making the match way better than it had any right to be. But if you look at the match, you can tell LT blew up, not in the best ring shape, which I guess you could say in a way makes the match better because it made wrestling look hard. But then LT just went over clean and was like, fuck it. I mean, that is the worst powerbomb I think I've ever seen in my life. When he gave Bam Bam the jackknife. I'm like, are you sure that's what that was, Vince? It looked like he was starting with the jackknife and then he turned it into a gut wrench power suplex, I should say. It didn't look good, but kind of sloppy. LT wasn't in the best shape. He's not a wrestler. He's a different discipline, different art form, different level of physicality that's required out of doing it. And LT just got gassed. That's just how it is. Like I said, I don't think this match is the complete and utter disaster that a lot of people would have expected it to be, but it's not one of the better Mania main events. And it's kind of sad that a match that includes a football player who had no business being in the ring. Many would argue, many wrestling purists would say that this match had no business closing because, a football player shouldn't be in the main event. I would counter with that by saying Shawn Michaels versus Diesel wasn't that great either. I love it when people say that match was match of the night. I'm like, yeah, and that match sucked too. I wasn't a fan of that match either, so who cares? The whole show was a garbage heap. But anyway, LT versus Bam Bam, it was clearly like a cheap way to be a weird attraction for WrestleMania to draw people in. And the match itself didn't fully work. Both men tried their best. They did what was asked of them. Bam Bam gets an A for effort in my book, for his side of, carrying things, but the match didn't fully work for me. But like I was about to say, it's kind of sad that on a top 10 worst WrestleMania list, the one with the football player in it is only at 9. Oh my god, we've got some bad ones to go through. Next up on the list is the most recent WrestleMania main event. Brock Lesnar defending the Universal Championship against Roman Reigns. WrestleMania 34 main event. This was a disaster. I mean, the crowd, you want to talk about a crowd completely rejecting the story that you're telling. This match did this more than probably any other match I've ever seen, where it was just like, they saw what was happening and they just completely rejected it from the word go. And really what went wrong here was that the story they were telling is that Roman Reigns can kick out of 858 F5s, but not 851 F5s. That was basically the story. It was I think I made the comment that it felt like this match was put together by kids playing a video game. So just hit the F5 over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it was repetitive, terrible, dull, ridiculous. There's superhero babyface stuff, and then after he kicks out of so many F5s, it just gets to the point where it's just ridiculous. I've noticed that more and more people, it's not just me, more and more fans and critics online are kind of turning against the finisher fest idea, because it's kind of lazy if you think about it. It's just, so what? He kicked out of a finisher. Every main event has finisher kickouts now. Who cares? How's that special? And sometimes it just gets to the point where it almost feels like a parody of itself. And this one pushed it to the nth degree, where it's like, by the 4th or 5th one, I was like, oh, for God's sake. I'm like, what is going on here? The reason that this match is not higher on the list is because it was mercifully short. It was only about 15 minutes, so at least it didn't drag on for half an hour, like some other main events that are going to appear on this list. So it was like getting a shot. It hurt, but it was quick. Other ones feel like Chinese water torture, where it hurts and it also takes a very, very long time and drains the very essence of your soul in the process. So, yeah. Yeah. But even more ridiculous than the Lesnar-Reigns match was the main event of WrestleMania 27. The Miz defending the WWE Championship against John Cena. Now, the best thing about this match was Miz's entrance, specifically the entrance video, which was awesome and a great piece of production by the WWE. But, this match is at the number 7 spot for a reason. It is terrible. Very sloppy match. Miz was, again, it's kind of like Jericho at 18. He was the guy holding the belt at this main event. And he actually went over in this main event, and you still didn't. He goes over John Cena in the main event of WrestleMania, and he still feels like a bit player, because really the whole point was they're building to Rock and Cena the next year. And Miz was just the guy holding the belt. And he was promoted poorly, too. He had that feud with Jerry Lawler, where Jerry Lawler was beating the crap out of him. I'm like, this is... Come on. The announcer guy is kicking his ass. That's ridiculous. But, and yes, I know Jerry's a legend, but that was 30, 40 years ago. Like, come on, guys. It's not great to promote your WWF champion, WWE champion, as the guy that's getting his ass kicked by the announcers. It looks really bad on him. But anyway, the match was very sloppy and boring, and kind of a mess, until it ended with a double countout, and then the anonymous Raw GM communicating through the laptop, which, God, do I remember those days. That was not one of their better ideas. Rock, who was the guest host of the show, came out, restarted the match, made it no disqualifications, then immediately rock bottomed Cena, setting up Miz to get the win, and then Rock stood tall over both of them, making them both look like bitches. So, it was just a stupid, silly, ridiculous excuse for a main event that existed for the sole purpose of setting up Rock and Cena the next year. There were probably better ways to do that, but it's really strange that they used a WrestleMania main event, and arguably an entire WrestleMania onto itself, just to set up the next year's WrestleMania. It's kind of like a shitty version of WrestleManias 4 and 5, where I mean, you could argue that all the stuff they did with the Mega Powers leading into WrestleMania 4 and Hogan being involved in the main event and Savage winning the title, that was all done to set up Hogan Savage at 5. But we were all happy Savage won the title. We didn't feel gypped. This one felt like, it's like, did you even care? Did you even care at all? I mean, why even have a main event if you're just going to do this? But whatever. Anyway, moving right along to number 6, another John Cena main event. John Cena defending the WWE title against Triple H. God damn it, why do I keep doing this to myself, where I keep putting myself in positions where I have to talk about this fucking match over and over again? I swear to God, if you've heard my rants about this match, you know, if you've heard them before, I'm not going to give you anything new. I hate this match with a passion. I hated the entrances. I hated that the fucking thing even took place. This should have been Edge's year. I'm still bitter about it. I don't give a fuck. I don't care that Edge eventually got his WrestleMania main event, and it turned out pretty good. I wouldn't call Edge versus Taker a Mania Classic, but it was a pretty good match. And I was just glad that Edge got a main event spot where he didn't look like a chump. But this should have been Edge's year. He was red fucking hot, and they just didn't want to deviate from the Triple H John Cena plan for whatever goddamn reason. A match that I didn't care about. I would venture to... I mean, did anybody really care? Was I the only one that truly didn't care about that match? You know, Cena wasn't working as a babyface. Triple H had spent all of last year putting over Batista, so he felt like a step down for Cena, quite honestly, just based on the way he was booked. Edge was the hotter heel. I'm sorry. It's just, he would have been the way to go, but Triple H gets that spot. Can't be changed. If he's promised the man, unless God strikes him down and tears his quad, which, thank God we were spared the rematch at WrestleMania 23. I don't care if it's, I don't root for guys to get injured. I really don't. I felt bad that Triple H got hurt, but when I heard that it caused, you know, him getting injured, took a Cena Triple H rematch away from us, I was like, oh, well, I guess from all bad comes good. I got spared that fucking match. So, yeah, I thought the work in the match was sloppy. The crowd reaction was, I mean, they shit all over Cena. This was like the zenith of, like, hatred for John Cena as a babyface. So they didn't care about the protagonist of the story. Cena was a sloppier worker back then. The match just didn't work for me. It just didn't work. It was just ridiculous. It was an exercise in futility. It didn't get Cena more over. It didn't, Triple H didn't look like a better villain, whether he'd gone over or not. Like I said, the entrances were beyond stupid. Triple H should be embarrassed that he was wearing that Conan costume. And I don't even want to talk about that gangster entrance that Cena got. Although it was CM Punk's WrestleMania debut, he got his Mania debut DDP style, but it was, oh my god, I hate this match so much. I've already talked enough about it. I'm done. I am done talking about this match. I hope to God I never have to talk about this match on this channel ever again. I fucking hate it. So, it's amazing to me that it's only number 6 on this list. That says a lot. Number 5 on this list was the fiasco at WrestleMania 9. Bret Hart defending the WWF title against Yokozuna. Yokozuna wins the title after Fuji throws salt in Bret Hart's face. Yokozuna wins the belt. Hulk Hogan comes out to comfort Bret Hart. Fuji, being a fool, challenges Hogan to an impromptu championship match. Hogan wins the belt in 30 seconds, and the show ends with Hogan posing because, as Bruce Pritchard says, Hogan must pose. And I mean, I guess you could say it was kind of the first Money in the Bank cash-in before Money in the Bank was even a thing, long before it was even a conceived concept. This was political power taken to the extreme, where Hogan had so much power that he could just say, "I'm winning the title at Mania, brother," even though he's not advertised for the main event. It reeked of bullshit, and that was my main problem with it. And it's the main reason I contend that a lot of people hate WrestleMania 9. And I've said it before, I've defended Mania 9 a lot of times. I don't think it's as bad as people say it is, but that main event is bullshit. I think the main event being bullshit is why a lot of people hate it. I think that's the number one reason. And it was just like, it felt like Bret Hart was being swept under the rug. It felt like Yokozuna got built up and then thrown away, even though he would ultimately beat Hogan. And that's another thing. Like, if this thing had built to Hogan versus Bret at, say, SummerSlam, I would have forgiven it. But we didn't get that, so bleh. It was... yeah, it was bad. It was just bad. It was most unfortunate. Fortunately, they rectified it at WrestleMania 10 by giving Bret Hart the win over Yokozuna and, letting him have his big Mania celebration. But this was, this fiasco was just ridiculous. This was just silly booking, letting a wrestler pretty much do whatever he wants to get the belt, and that was that. But, yeah, a lot of people hate it, and with good reason. But, next up, number 4, we have... unlucky number 13. At WrestleMania 13, we had Psycho Sid defending the WWE Championship against The Undertaker in a match that was bad, but I blame neither guy that was put in the ring. This was not Undertaker's fault. This was not Sid's fault. Shawn Michaels lost his smile, and they were just put into a bad situation because Shawn couldn't work Bret. Bret got put with Austin, and with those two wrapped up together... it was like, well, shit, what do we do for a main event? We got nothing. They had nothing. And they just kind of had to throw Taker and Sid together just for the sake of having a world title match at WrestleMania. It was a bad position. This match had no heat, no intrigue, no story. We all knew Taker was going to win, and they even managed to ruin that by having Bret Hart help Taker win, so we couldn't even get like a clean Undertaker victory out of it. It was bad. It was a really unfortunate scenario. It was just one of those cases where the fans weren't invested. There was no reason to be invested in it. It was a no disqualifications match for some reason. There's that rumor that Sid shit himself on the tombstone of the finish. Don't know if it's true. Don't want to know, to be perfectly honest. Although it would be fairly appropriate for this match and this WrestleMania as a whole, minus the submission match, which I've said it before. That show is one amazing top 5 match of all time classic away from being the worst WrestleMania of all time. I mean, it's that bad. You take that match off the card, that card is horribly dire, like really, really pathetic. So it's yeah, this is one of the worst WrestleMania main events, easy. And again, I don't think either guy can be blamed. I know a lot. It's the cool thing to do to shit on Sid, and I know he wasn't the most talented guy. And this was his second WrestleMania main event, and his first one didn't go that well either, but it's I mean, really, I don't know if anybody could have made this work. It's one of those cases, I don't think anybody could have made this work. It was just like, oh, by the way, you guys have no storyline, no build-up, no heat. You don't even really have a heel between the two of you. Sid was kind of the de facto heel, but not really, he was the heel, but heel in name only. There was nothing, he didn't have anything to do to really build heat. The more interesting storyline developments involved Bret, and Bret was wrapped up with Austin. So, that's what you got. And it was an unfortunate scenario. It's one of those matches I look back on. I feel bad for both guys because they were just put into a rough situation. And Taker, this is his big title win at the peak of his career. And it's kind of like, oh, yay, Taker's the champ in this match that nobody cares about. Okay. I mean, you look at this WrestleMania and then you look at WrestleMania 14, it's like night and day. You look at the main events, with Mike Tyson involved and Austin and Michaels and that interesting scenario, and this match had none of that. It was just very dry, very boring. And again, I don't blame either guy for it. It was just a very unfortunate scenario that they were put into, that the company was put into, and it was what it was. Number 3, a very recent one. Triple H defending the WWE title against Roman Reigns. At WrestleMania 32, a match I believe was no disqualifications, though I don't care and I don't feel like rewatching it to go check. Again, it's the same problem that Roman has had almost his entire run as a main eventer and as a babyface. The fans don't care, they don't like him, and they don't like him because they didn't pick him. They know he's being rammed down their throats. The fans don't like to be told what to do. So you throw him out there as the big hero that's going to conquer the bad guy, and nobody gives a shit. And so you get this long, boring match that has a story that nobody's invested in. And they chanted everything under the sun. I remember at one point they started chanting for Nakamura. They didn't care. The television audience didn't care. And this was a WrestleMania that felt every bit its length and then some. This was a Mania that I think this was the second one, or maybe I don't know. How long has WrestleMania been? 5 hours? I don't know, but I think this was the first one that did the 2-hour pre-show, which, good God, maybe 31 was the first one that did that. I don't know. But in any case, the WrestleMania is too goddamn long now. That's basically the moral of the story. And this one felt the longest out of all the recent WrestleManias. And this main event just went on and dragged forever. And it's like, oh my God, can Roman just go over, please, and just get this over with for the love of Christ? See, that's the difference what the Lesnar-Reigns match has over this. At least Lesnar-Reigns was short. This one went on forever. And Triple H has this bad habit of thinking that he can work a 30-minute match with everybody. And I'm here to tell you, Trips, no, you can't. Sometimes a match has to be a hot 15. You just gotta, you gotta know your role sometimes. Not every match needs to be 30 minutes long. I'm just saying. But it went forever. It took forever. It drained a little bit of my life away. Terrible, terrible match. Reigns went over. Nobody cared. And that was that. Number 2 on my list. The very next year. Isn't it sad that the last 3 WrestleManias are all on this list? It's like the main event to WrestleMania is becoming one of the worst parts of the show. Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker in a no-holds-barred match at WrestleMania 33. This one had all the problems of the previous year. It was long, boring, nobody cares about Roman, and him going over just made people groan. But added on top of that, you had Undertaker, who was put into this match clearly out of shape, clearly over the hill, looked really bad in there, and it looked like, oh my God, this is sad. Like, this is, I talked about the Andre documentary. I don't want to say it reminded me of like later stage Andre at the end of his career, but it was kind of cut from that same cloth where it was like, you ain't what you used to be, buddy. And it was sad to see Undertaker like that. So on top of the fact that this match was boring, on top of the fact that they were botching left and right, on top of the fact that it went on way too long, it was just depressing to me to see Undertaker broken down in that state. See, this year they got it right. It's like, oh, hey, let's only have him work a 2-minute match. That'll do it. He'll look great under those circumstances. But, it was terrible. Like, and it was one of those matches that, again, it legitimately depressed me while I was watching it. I was like, I cannot believe Undertaker has been reduced to this. And It was one of those things like, look, I know I've been praying for him to retire for years now, but this one I really like, okay, dude, come on, it's time to wrap this up. And now he had a match at WrestleMania where he beat Cena, and I think it ended up being 2.5 or close to 3 minutes. And now he's going to be working Rusev at the Greatest Royal Rumble. And I'm like, oh, okay. More Undertaker. Hooray. Zippity-doo-dah. So that was number 2. Before I go into number 1, a couple of dishonorable mentions. At WrestleMania 8, Hulk Hogan versus Sid Justice. This was the second half of the double main event, and I would argue Hulk Hogan's worst WrestleMania performance by far. If you look at Hogan's WrestleMania resume, he typically delivers something pretty special at Mania, from the tag match at 1, the match with Andre at 3, the match with Savage at 5, the match with Warrior at 6. I would even say the match with Slaughter at 7, not one of his better ones, but still good for what it was and gave the fans what they wanted. The match with Rock at 18, of course, is a classic. The match with Vince at 19 is insane, and what was far beyond what anybody would have ever expected from it. But this is the one that I felt was like, this was... And granted, I know like there was the match at 9, the fiasco of the main event at 9, but that wasn't really a performance. That was just like a booking, power play that was just kind of eye-roll inducing. This was just... This is the worst Hulk Hogan WrestleMania match. And it was a very dull match, very weak sauce by WrestleMania standards for Hogan. The reason it didn't make the top 10 is because Ultimate Warrior came out at the end, and the shock of the Ultimate Warrior's return was so cool that it made people forget that the match was garbage. Made people forget that the ending to the match was botched, where Papa Shango missed his cue and mistimed the finish, and they had to kind of cook up another DQ finish on the fly in the ring because Shango missed his cue. So yeah, even with the botched finish, it's like, but Warrior came back. That was pretty cool. So you got that, and that kind of made people forget that the match was garbage. So it's like, okay, they pulled out of the nosedive. I'll give them that. Keeps it out of the top 10. Then at WrestleMania 16, we had Triple H defending the WWF Championship against The Rock, Mick Foley, and The Big Show in a Fatal 4-Way elimination match at WrestleMania 2000. I think my criticisms of this match largely fall on there were just too many moving parts. Because one of the big attractions of the match was that there was a McMahon in every corner. You had Stephanie in Triple H's corner, you had Vince in Rock's corner, you had Linda in Mick's corner, and you had Shane in Big Show's corner. And so you had the whole McMahon family dynamic being pushed into this match. You had 4 guys in there, which, there didn't need to be 4 guys, to be perfectly honest. Foley had already been retired by Triple H, and Big Show just looked so out of place in there. They got him out of there pretty quick, too, because they knew he was out of place in there. The only reason he was in this match, because apparently that spot was promised to him when he signed with the company the year before. So, because I believe the original Mania 2000 main event plan was Austin versus Big Show, in like an attempt to do like the Attitude Era's version of Andre Hogan, which I personally don't think that would have worked. But in any case, this is the match we got. There's too many guys in the ring, too many guys outside the ring, too many moving parts, bit of a clusterfuck. The thing that keeps this match out of the top 10 is it did boil down to Rock versus Triple H, which is what the main event should have been the whole time. And I've said it before, it's what you got at Backlash the next month is probably what should have happened at WrestleMania, except maybe do Rock and Triple H at Mania with Foley in Rock's corner, and then at Backlash do the rematch where Austin comes out and helps Rock. So that was my idea. But this should have been Triple H and Rock one-on-one with Rock going over, because that was the other problem with this match. Triple H went over at the end with a eye-roll-inducing Vince McMahon heel turn, where Rock got cost the match, and for the first time ever, a heel walked out of WrestleMania as the champion. Very annoying. It was again, it felt like the ending to an In Your House. It didn't feel like the ending to a WrestleMania. It didn't have that glorious WrestleMania ending that you would want. It felt like a very standard pay-per-view ending. Very unfortunate, but the match was solid when it was just Triple H and Rock. So for that, I'll give it somewhat of a pass. At least keep it out of the top 10. Even though I do maintain that the match is a clusterfuck. And then finally on the dishonorable mentions, we have The Rock versus John Cena at Mania 29. The one that I attended got a boring chant. I don't know if it came across on TV, but there were people chanting boring for sure. And it was just a clear sign that it's like, look, you did it once in 28. People seem to really like the 28 match, but we were kind of done. We didn't need to see this match again. Punk should have gone into Mania as the champion. He said it before. I've said it. A bunch of people have said it. Let him end his long, historic reign at WrestleMania. Punk even said it like, look, even if you want to do a three-way and you want to eliminate me first, like, dude, just give me my Mania spot. Damn it. But, yeah, the reason this match didn't make the top 10 is that it did pick up in the closing minutes, and they did have some nice callbacks to the first match, like repeating the People's Elbow spot. I do think they missed an opportunity. This would have been, there have been a lot of opportunities to turn Cena heel. This probably was the best time to do it, because I had the idea of like, okay, the Shield comes out and helps Cena beat Rock, and it turns out that Cena was behind the Shield the whole time. And you get Cena as like this top heel, and he runs the Shield, and they destroy everything. That would have been great. They didn't do that, obviously. Cena just won. It's like, oh, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. But that's it. But, like I said, the match did pick up in the closing minutes and had some nice callbacks to the first match. So I'll give it a little bit of a pass. It doesn't make the top 10 worst. But the number one worst WrestleMania main event of all time, I am going to give that to Triple H defending the WWE Championship against Randy Orton at WrestleMania 25. An absolute disaster of a match. God, I don't even know where to start. First of all, and I've said this before, in the build-up to this match, Randy Orton was totally the babyface. I don't care what anybody says. The McMahon family was going to fire him for no reason. They tried to screw him over at every turn. They've been generally booked and presented as horrible people. So to me, it's like, oh, Randy Orton kicked Vince in the head and told them to go fuck themselves? Good. Yeah, they're terrible people. It's like, oh, I went after Triple H because he screwed me out of the title and basically ruined my career for a couple years. I'm like, yeah, that's the truth. That actually happened. So in my eyes, Randy Orton was the babyface. But, on the go-home show before WrestleMania, I remember that like it was yesterday. Vince and Shane came back and helped beat up Legacy, and Triple H and Raw basically ended with Triple H kicking Randy Orton's ass. And it was like, well, you basically undid his heat, so that's not what you want to go home on. That was pretty bad. But so you're going into this match, and it has the stipulation that if Triple H gets disqualified, he loses the title. Now, what this ultimately did was put a restriction on how badly Triple H could beat the ever-living shit out of Randy Orton, because he basically ate him up and chewed him up and spat him out. He basically destroyed him, and it got to a point where it was like he punted Orton, he hit him with a sledgehammer, and by the time he gave him the pedigree, it was like he was pedigreeing a corpse. And once again, the match was really, really long. Seemed like it went on forever. It felt like it peaked in the first minute, because in the first minute, they both hit their finishers on each other. And it was like, oh, maybe this match is going to be wild and crazy. And no, it just kind of settled in this very slow, very plodding, very uninteresting match without much of a story, where, again, Randy Orton just got chewed up and spat out. And the best part about the whole thing, when it was finally over, I was like, oh, thank God. This one has ended. And of course, it's another one of those cases where the match went on for half an hour and it had no business being that long. And again, it has that, kind of bring it back to WrestleMania 18, it has that excuse where it's like, oh, the Taker-Shawn match stole its thunder and took away from the main event. I'm like, you know what? It gets to a point, because Triple H is always in the spot, it seems, where it's like, oh, but that earlier match was so great that it killed the heat for the main event. It's like, well, you know what? If Triple H can't follow that, then maybe he shouldn't be in the main event anymore. And I was saying that back in 2009 when WrestleMania 25 happened, and he's main evented a couple of times since then. Why? I don't know. Actually, I think has it only been the one main event since then? I think so. Yeah, just the one since then. Okay, all right. But still, that's one too many. But it's, it does get to that point where it's like, maybe he shouldn't be main eventing if he can't follow what came before him. Because Say what you will about Hogan Andre, that match followed Savage Steamboat. Say what you will about Daniel Bryan being a B-plus player and, not having the mainstream crossover appeal that a John Cena would or whatever, but, his match was able to follow a little thing that happened called the end of the streak, which sent the fans into hysterics and depressed some and angered a lot of others. Daniel Bryan was able to follow that and get the crowd back and WrestleMania 30 on a huge high note. So it's, to me, if it gets to a point where it's like, look, if you can't follow what came before you, then you shouldn't be the main event. I'm sorry. That's just how it goes. And not saying that the main event has to be the best match on the show every single time. I'm just saying it's like the main event has to be able to follow what came before to be worthy of being in that closing spot. And if it's not, then it has no business closing. Just my take. But yes, Triple H versus Randy Orton is my pick for worst WrestleMania main event of all time. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Great to be back making regular vids, and I've got a couple more lined up for you, so be on the lookout for all of those. But that is all I have for you now. You all enjoy the rest of your week, and peace out, and I will see you all this weekend.